Late April in Phoenix has its own kind of heat, not the brutal summer kind yet, but warm enough to make every bill feel heavier. From a second-floor landing of a tired apartment complex in Maryvale, Serena Alvarez could see the city stretching bright and clean in the distance, like it belonged to somebody else. Inside her place, the air was thin with the hum of an old fridge and the constant mental math of what could wait and what couldn't. Serena was 31, a housekeeper who crossed town every day to clean kitchens she could never afford to cook in, and her emergency cushion lived in a worn envelope at the bottom of her purse. After rent, gas, and her daughter's school fees, she had just over $1,000 that wasn't already promised to someone else. That money was supposed to be their safety rope, not a ticket into an auction where people treated risk like a hobby. Her life ran on a straight line between two maps that barely touched. One was her neighborhood, where the stair rails were always sticky, the walls were always thin, and 8-year-old Luna called their building the Echo Place because every laugh and argument bounced back at you. The other map was Paradise Valley, where Serena spent her days moving quietly through marble foyers and spotless pantries, wiping fingerprints from glass that cost more than her car. She didn't hate the work. Most days she didn't even resent the contrast. She just felt invisible in those houses, necessary but not noticed. And then she drove home to the world where a surprise tire blowout could tilt everything. She'd already done the sensible things. Cut every small comfort. Sold the last jewelry from a marriage that ended without drama. Learned which grocery store marked down meat on which day. The numbers still slid the wrong way, slow and steady. The idea came from someone else's offhand comment, the way dangerous ideas usually do. Janelle, another cleaner, mentioned that the families up north rented storage units the way other people paid for phone plans, automatically, without thinking. Remodel leftovers, kid stuff, boxes from estate clearouts, entire lives packed and forgotten behind roll-up doors. Sometimes they kept paying for years. Then a card expired, an assistant missed a notice, a lawyer changed offices, and the storage company did what storage companies always did. New lock, public auction, cash on the table. Janelle shrugged like it was trivia, then added the line that stuck under Serena's skin. Once in a while, you open a door and it's like walking into another life. Serena tried to ignore it. She was not a gambler. Motherhood had turned her into a person of lists and receipts and backup plans. Still, April had brought its own quiet pressure. Luna's shoes were getting tight again. The Corolla had started pulling right on the freeway. A small problem now, a disaster later. Serena lay awake some nights, listening to her daughter breathe, and the thought of a carefully chosen risk stopped feeling foolish and started feeling like the only move left. A flyer in the break room finally pushed her from thinking to acting. Paradise Valley self-storage, lien auction, date and time, rules in tiny print. View from the threshold only, no stepping inside before bidding. 48 hours to clear the unit, cash only. Serena stared at the paper until her coffee went cold. This wasn't a lottery ticket, she told herself. Even a good unit would mean hauling, sorting, listing, meeting buyers. A bad unit would mean dump fees and regret. But the truth sat under that logic like a stone. She was already drowning slowly. Doing nothing was its own kind of gamble. 2 mornings later, she drove north with the envelope in her purse and a tightness in her chest she couldn't talk down. The facility looked modest at first glance, but everything whispered money. Fresh paint, discreet cameras, manicured gravel beds. Regular bidders were already there, leaning on trucks, trading jokes, eyes trained to see profit in shadows. Serena stayed at the edge, watching how they reacted to each door, when they perked up, when they drifted away. She promised herself one thing as the manager began rolling up units. She would not chase a bid past her line, no matter how pretty the boxes looked. They were near the last row when the manager stopped at a corner unit and broke the seal. The door rattled up, and Serena's breath caught. No chaos, no trash mound. Banker boxes stacked clean and even, labels written in narrow, careful handwriting. Playroom consoles and games. Media room speakers. Guest house bedding. Tall wardrobe cartons lined the wall like a closet in a catalog. Near the front, just visible from the threshold, the edge of a flat-screen TV, still wrapped in protective film, and the curve of a high-end gaming chair. The regulars didn't look impressed. One muttered that kid stuff was more work than it was worth. Another complained about shipping electronics. Serena saw something different. She saw a life packed by someone who never worried about space, and she felt that dangerous click of possibility. The opening bid came fast, numbers bouncing casually between people for whom this was sport. Serena did the math the only way she knew how, not with dreams but with rent, tires, and groceries. When the price hesitated just below her limit, she raised her card. Heads turned, surprised that a quiet woman with no trailer and no crew would step in here. The pause felt longer than it was. Then, one by one, the others let it go, already hunting the next easy flip. Sold. The word landed in her stomach like a stone and a spark at the same time. She just emptied nearly all her safety net for a metal door she hadn't even opened. The manager handed her the key. The lane went quiet. Serena stood alone, listening to her own breathing and the distant hum of traffic beyond the walls. Behind that door waited boxes from a world that had never noticed her, stacked and labeled and taped shut. She slid the key into the latch and held it there, not turning yet, because the question hit her all at once, sharp enough to taste. Had she just bought a way out, or stepped into someone else's unfinished story? Serena didn't lift the door all the way at first. She raised it just enough to slip under, then stopped at the threshold like the rules still mattered, even though she owned the lock now. The air inside was cooler and smelled faintly of cardboard and fabric, the kind of sealed stillness that told her this unit had been packed carefully and left alone. What she saw matched the labels almost too perfectly, like someone had organized their life for storage the way other people organized a pantry for show. Along the left wall, 3 flat-screen TVs leaned upright, each still wrapped in protective plastic with shipping stickers curled at the corners. 2 gaming consoles sat in their original boxes, controllers taped in place, and a bin labeled Playroom held neat stacks of game cases, extra controllers, a VR headset in foam, and coil cables bundled like somebody actually cared. On the right, tall totes marked holiday new toys and gift closet were filled with unopened sets, big-name kits, and boxes that looked like they'd never made it out of the shopping bag. Near the back, a row of glossy speakers stood like towers, and on a high shelf, she spotted a hard drone case with a brand name she'd heard clients drop casually when they talked about weekend fun. For a minute her brain refused to connect the scene to her life. 2 days ago, she was pricing tires and wondering how long she could stretch a grocery list. Now she was staring at enough resale value to change the next 6 months if she didn't fumble it. She pulled her phone out and started filming slowly, sweeping left to right, catching every label, every brand, every corner of protective wrap. She wasn't thinking like a dreamer anymore. She was thinking like someone who had learned the hard way that luck only helps if you can prove what you found and what condition it was in. She opened one bin at a time, keeping her movements controlled. Controllers still sealed. Games alphabetized, some untouched. A tablet in a protective case, clean screen, no cracks. 3 smartwatches in boxes. A carton labeled old phones holding several slim late-model devices. Not brand new, but valuable enough to make her throat tighten. She pictured her apartment living room and realized she couldn't even store all of this comfortably, which meant she would have to move fast, but not careless. The wrong buyer, the wrong meeting spot, one bad decision, and a miracle could turn into a lesson. Then she reached the deeper part of the unit, where the labels shifted from fun to private. Office files, personal letters, master closet evening. Wardrobe cartons held garment bags with dresses that felt heavy and expensive even through plastic. A shoebox revealed red-soled heels in near-perfect condition, the kind she'd dusted around in closets without ever imagining she'd touch. 2 small jewelry cases sat in a shallow drawer box, and when she opened them, her pulse jumped. A mother-of-pearl watch with a luxury logo she recognized from magazine ads, and a pair of diamond studs that caught the dim light like tiny sparks. She set those aside immediately, not because she didn't want them, but because she understood what jewelry did to a situation. Electronics were easy. Jewelry invited questions. Under the office box, she found a leather folio with embossed initials and charity event materials, donor programs, neatly printed pages where one name repeated enough to feel like a warning sign. Belmont. She'd heard it before on plaques and hospital wings, the kind of name that didn't float through the city unnoticed. She was still processing that when she finally cleared a narrow path to the back wall and saw the one thing that changed the temperature of the whole room. A fireproof safe, carry-on size, matte gray, digital keypad with worn numbers. Not decorative, not casual, not something you forgot you owned. Serena stood there for a long second without touching it, because everything else in the unit felt like leftovers. The safe felt like intention. She photographed it from every angle, caught the brand, the serial, the security sticker peeling at one corner. The keypad didn't beep when she brushed it. Dead batteries. Maybe, or something older than that. She tried the handle gently. Locked. Of course it was. When her phone alarm buzzed to remind her Luna's pickup time was closing in, Serena forced herself to step back. She pulled the door down, snapped her padlock in place, and walked away with the key warm in her palm and a new kind of pressure in her chest. Consoles and TVs could solve bills. The Delmont folio could explain whose life she'd bought. But that safe, silent in the shadows, held the one answer she couldn't guess. If she paid to open it and found nothing, she'd burn money she didn't have. If she opened it and found something real, she might change everything. And as she drove toward the school, trying to act normal at red lights, one thought kept returning, steady as a heartbeat. Some doors don't just open into value. They open into consequences. Serena didn't touch the safe again that night. She put Luna to bed, washed dishes, answered one message from her sister about weekend plans, and tried to behave like her life hadn't suddenly grown a locked metal question mark. But the safe sat in her mind the way a toothache sits in your jaw, impossible to ignore once you know it's there. By sunrise, she had made a decision that felt both brave and painfully practical. She would open it, but she would do it clean. Receipt, paperwork, someone professional in a public shop. Nothing shady and nothing rushed. The locksmith didn't ask for drama. He checked the serial plate, quoted a flat price, and warned her the same thing he warned everyone. Sometimes these hold nothing but papers, and sometimes they hold the reason papers exist. When the door finally gave with a heavy internal click, Serena's breath caught anyway. Inside were three things stacked with the calm precision of someone who believed this box would outlast them. A bank envelope, two folders banded tight, and a small velvet box that looked like it had been opened and closed 100 times by careful hands. She lifted the velvet box first. The pendant inside didn't need an appraiser to announce itself. An oval green stone, deep and clean, set in warm gold, ringed with tiny diamonds that threw light even under the shop's fluorescent glare. For a second she forgot every bill, every late fee, every tired morning, because this wasn't a random find. This was a story. The folders proved it. The Delmont name appeared again, along with estate letters, inventory notes, and one clip page that mentioned the pendant like it was a family sentence nobody could finish. Serena went home with her hands shaking for a new reason. Not fear exactly, but the weight of realizing she'd found something people had been searching for. She didn't run to sell it. She didn't hide it either. The next day, she sent one careful email through the storage manager, and by evening a law firm replied with the kind of politeness that still carries power. They didn't threaten her. They didn't question her purchase. They explained the mistake, the expired payment method, the missed notices, the legal reality that the unit was hers, and then they asked, plainly, if she was willing to return one specific heirloom. Serena walked into that meeting with her receipts, photos, and a calm she had to build piece by piece, and she told the truth. The associate listened, then slid an offer across the table based on documented appraisals, not bargaining games. The number was big enough to make her vision blur. Not rich people big, but life reset big. Serena negotiated anyway, because survival had taught her to. Part paid now. Part placed directly into an education fund for Luna. The locksmith fee reimbursed. Everything signed. Everything clean. The pendant went back into a fireproof cabinet with a chain of custody. And Serena walked out with something she'd never had before. A year that wouldn't be decided by panic. The rest of the unit did its work quietly. The consoles sold fast. The TVs moved to buyers who met her in safe public places. The speakers, the drone, the new in-box toys, the designer pieces she could verify, all turned into steady cash instead of desperate cash. She caught up on rent, fixed the car properly, and moved into a brighter apartment where Luna had her own room and the walls didn't echo every worry. Months later, a museum membership card arrived in the mail with Luna's name printed on it, and a short note that said the pendant was on display again, credited to an anonymous member of the community who chose honesty when it cost effort. The happiest part wasn't the money. It was a Tuesday evening when Serena sat at her own kitchen table, bills paid and groceries stocked, and helped Luna color a school poster without checking her bank balance even once. The safe had been a test, but it turned out to be a bridge, not to someone else's life, but to her own finally feeling steady.